Let us study the Gupta's administration. Gupta period saw the gradual disappearance of the republican form of government. And here the first and the most important the feature of the Gupta rule, you can see that monarchical government. So let us find out what is this monarchical government means. Monarchy was prevailing form of the government during Gupta period. The theory of divinity of the kings became popular during this period, and the rulers were compared to many gods. They were even compared to Vishnu as regards their function of preserving and protecting the people. And Lakshmi, the goddess of prosperity, appears on many Gupta coins. The Gupta kings enjoyed a large number of powers which covered the political, administrative, military and judicial fields. They were the commanders-in-chief of the army. And here examples: Samudragupta, Chandragupta II, Skandagupta personally led their armies. And these kings appointed all the governors and the important military and the civil officers. The governors and their officers had to work under the control and the guidance of the king. That means here the king had the supreme power. Likewise, the central secretariat also worked under the supervision of the king. The king was the source of all honors and the titles. All land in the country was the prosperity of the king, who could give away the same to anybody he pleased. He could construct dams, give shelter to foreigners, impose, recover and remit taxes, and give justice. If any property was unclaimed, that went into the coffers of the king. That means here unclaimed properties would go directly to the king. The king used to get many titles like Parameshwara, Maharaja and Paramabhattaraka, indicate the existence of lesser princes and the chiefs with whom they had to come to terms in managing their empire. Despite, that means here, the divine elements attributed to Gupta kings, the Brahmins as the chief custodians and the interpreters of law exercised a check on royal power. That means here prominence was given to the Brahmins. Though monarchy was at the final stage, it was assisted by a council of ministers. This even we studied under that Mauryas, called that Mantri Parishad. So Kalidasa, the renowned poet, refers to the Mantri Parishad. It consisted of the prince, the high officials and also the feudatories. So among the high officers, the Kumar Amatya and Sandhi Vigrahika, the Kumar Amatyas formed the chief cadre for recruiting the high functionaries. Some of the Kumar Amatyas functioned in their own right and maintained their regular office. Then the office of Sandhi Vigrahika, the Minister of Peace and War, first appeared under Samudragupta, and Harisena held this title. The main duty of Sandhi Vigrahika was to deal with the feudatories. In addition to these officers, there are references to a dozen of other officers who engaged in managing military, fiscal and the rural matters. The growing importance of cavalry is supported by seals and inscriptions. The civil officials such as Amatyas, Kumar Amatyas, etc. perform military functions are promoted to the rank of high military officers. And next, there were officers connected with the land transaction, and some of these maintained records of land, seals and other records connected with land. Then the revenue. Revenue might have been collected mostly in kind, but rich peasants probably paid in cash. The officer connected with the collection of tolls or the commodities were known as Shaulikar. The officer connected with the collection of tolls on commodities is known as Shulkika. Means here the officer in charge of collecting the various taxes. Then we move to the provincial administration and also the local administration. Here I have given all the points together, not separately. The provincial and the local administration. Under the provincial administration, the core of the empire directly controlled by the Guptas. The empire was divided into Bhuktis, each of was placed under the charge of an officer known as Uparika. That is mentioned even there. Bhuktis were under the charge of Uparika, means here the governor. Then the Uparika was a governor appointed by the king directly. Then the Bhuktis were further divided into Vishayas, placed under the charge of Vishayapati. That means Vishayas were under the charge of Vishayapati. Then the Vishayas were further divided into smaller units. And this pattern, however, was present mainly in the territories directly governed by Gupta kings. Elsewhere, there existed a different fiscal and administrative units such as Desha, Mandala, Bhoga, etc., especially in central and western India. See, this type of administrative units, even today we could see that. Means here now the nation, then the union of states, then the states were again the districts, then the lowest unit was that the village. The same system was followed by Guptas also, but they were in the different names. Got it? Now next we go to that village administration. So the village was managed by the village headman, and the Guptas inscriptions refers to the participation of leading local elements in the administration of the village or the small towns. They were known as Vittis. No land transaction could be effected without their consent, and this may have been also true of the other important affairs. Thus, while villages in Mauryan times were managed from above, those in the Gupta's times seems to have been managed from the grassroots level. That means here even the village administration was strict. Then the town administration, like how our local self-government. Village administration means you could see that the present village panchayats. In the same way, town administration means you could see that block administration, or you say that Nagara panchayats, like that. So there were various towns. That means here the towns were known as Janapadas, which used their seals and the coins. They were administered by a committee of 5. So this you can even compare with the Mauryas. There the town administration was controlled by the 6 boards, and here they have the 5. And some towns were being administratives of same kind of parishads. Means here now the Jilla parishads are there in the same way. The towns in the Gupta Empire was usually placed by an officer, under an officer called Purapala. Means how the present mayors are there in our cities. In the same way, the leading local men were also associated with the work of administration in the towns. Such people belong to the guilds of artisans and traders, which flourished during the Gupta age. The example is given here. Vaishali in Bihar was an important town where there were separate guilds of artisans. They were also known as Kulika, and the merchants were known as Shreshtis. Means here the community business was carried on. So this is about the administration of the Gupta period. So you could refer your textbook 61, page number 61 and the 62 for more details. Now we are going to learn about the contributions of Guptas to the Indian history. First we start with the education. During the Gupta age, education was given utmost importance. This is evident from the intellectual output in various fields like literature, science, mathematics, astronomy, astrology, and medicine. There were many centers of learning in cities like Pataliputra, Vallavi, Ujjain, Ayodhya, and Nasik. According to the inscriptions, the teachers were learned Brahmanas who were known as Acharyas and Upadhyayas, and sometimes they were even also given the title Bhattas. And then they were supported by grant of villages called the Agraharams given by the Gupta rulers and the charity given by the generous public. The disciples were known as Shishyas. They had taken to learn 14 sections of science comprising of 4 Vedas, then the 6 Vedangas, Puranas, Mimamsa, Nyaya and Dharma, besides Vyakarana of Patanjali, and the Mahabharata also was learnt. And here now we are going to learn about Nalanda University, the popular university of the Gupta period, the most renowned educational institution of ancient India. Now you are watching the picture. This is the remainings, the ruins of the famous Nalanda University. So this university was located at Nalanda in Rajagriha in Bihar. Lot of information about Nalanda University was given in the inscription and the accounts of Yuan Sung. This Yuan Sung, a Chinese Buddhist scholar who visited India during the reign of Harshavardhana. So let us find out the details, description of this university. The University of Nalanda had imposing buildings. There were at least 8 colleges built by different patrons, means the different rulers. Nalanda University provided various facilities to the students for their studies. There were 3 great libraries called Ratnasagar, Ratnadadi and Ratnaranjak, and there were about more than 10,000 students and the teachers. They came from the different places. You could see that they came from Korea, Mongolia, Japan, China, Tibet, Ceylon and the various parts of India. Then the subjects. What were the subjects taught in this university? They were of the 4 Vedas: logic, grammar, medicine, Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya and the Buddhist works of the different schools. And compared this Nalanda University, it was not an ordinary university. It was a postgraduate institution to which admissions was very strict. Before admission, an examination was held in which hardly 20% students passed and the rest were rejected. Only the most brilliant could admit to the university. Means here it was conducting the present day entrance like how your CET or the NEET exam for the various courses in the same way. Nalanda continued to be a beacon of light up to 12th century AD when it was destroyed by Muhammad bin Bakhtiyar Khilji. He was a general of Muhammad Ghori. Today only the remains of his magnificence and glory can be seen, and it has been declared a World Heritage Site by the UNESCO also. So the most renowned university of the ancient India. Contribution to the field of science. Here we are going to learn the contribution of Aryabhatta. Before that, a brief introduction into the field of science. During the Gupta period, great contribution was made in many branches of science like astronomy, medicine, metallurgy, and here they have given mentioned some of the famous scientists of this period. Varahamihira was a great astronomer. He proved the moon rotates round the earth and the earth rotates round the sun. Like that, Brihad Samhita of Varahamihira deals with astronomy. botany, natural history and the physical geography. Then Brahmagupta, he was a mathematician and astronomer. He described the law of gravitation several centuries before Newton. Metallurgy, or the scientific study of metals, had reached an advanced stage during the Gupta period. This is evident from the iron pillar at Mehrauli near Qutub Minar. Even today you could see in New Delhi. Then the other important scholars of this period were Charaka and Sushruta. Then we move to this Aryabhatta. Aryabhatta was a great astronomer. You could see the picture here. He was a great astronomer as well as the mathematician. He flourished during the reign of Gupta dynasty, most probably during the period of Chandragupta II. His famous books were Aryabhattiyam and Surya Siddhanta, and his main achievements. That means Aryabhattiyam deals with the mathematics. Then Surya Siddhanta, it deals with the about the sun, that means solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse. So we'll study in detail now. Aryabhatta said that Earth moves around the sun. That means here several years before. See, this has happened in the 4th century CE. Means several years before the coming of Europeans to India. You say that Galileo or Copernicus, all these they came in the modern period, but this was happened in the ancient period. Centuries before only Indians discovered that. He said that the earth moves around the sun. It was several centuries before the Europeans said the same thing. He discovered the rule finding the area of triangle, and then he calculated the exact value of pi, that was equal to 3.1416. The credit of developing the trigonometry should actually go to him. That means all these things are clearly explained in his book Aryabhattiyam. Then in his work Surya Siddhanta, he says about the explanation about the exact causes of the solar and the lunar eclipse. And Aryabhatta was acquainted with the decimal system and the use of zero. That is why he can be considered as the father of modern mathematics. Centuries before only, see, several years means centuries together, Europeans used to call the Indian numbers as the Arabic numbers. Later on when they came to know, now it is known as Indo-Arabic numbers. So we have to be proud that we belong to great India who discovered the decimal system and the concept of zero. That is why our first satellite when we launched, that was named as Aryabhatta. This is the contribution in the field of architecture, Deoghar temple, the Vishnu temple at Deoghar. The Vishnu temple was also called the Shavatara temple, is one of the finest example of Gupta's architecture. Then its location. It is about 125 kilometers from Jhansi in Uttar Pradesh. Then the significance of the temple. It is one of the earliest Hindu stone temple to survive till today. And it's about the main features. The main features of the temple here. It was the first North Indian temple with a shikara or a tower. Means we say that a gopura. Although a part of it disappeared, in spite of its dilapidation, that means here it was already almost ruined, but the temple has a compelling presence. That means here it is nice to see as our evidence. And it was completely made of stone and bricks. That means the material used, stone and bricks. And the temple was built on a 1.5 meters high platform. You could see here. In this picture you could see that it is built on high platform, and the 4 stairways outside the platform provide access to the temple. Even in these ruins you could see that all the 4 sides. Then its exterior is decorated with the scenes of Ramayana. Then the entrance and the pillars were also adorned with the countless paintings and the carvings. And totally the temple was dedicated to Lord Vishnu, the god of preservation, who is asleep on the coil of a giant serpent. You can see that, called Sheshanaga. We also say that Adishesha. You can see that. And the outer wall, that means the entire temple has the outer wall also. So this is about the Vishnu temple at Diyoghar. Next we move to the contribution, Gupta's contribution to the field of literature. Mainly here we are learning about Kalidasa. So who was this Kalidasa? Kalidasa is regarded as the greatest poet and playwright India has ever produced. According to Vincent Smith, has rightly compared the Gupta age with the Elizabethan period in the history of England. According to him, in India all the lesser lights are outshone by the brilliancy of Kalidasa, as in England all smaller authors were overshadowed by Shakespeare. Here Kalidasa was also known as Shakespeare of India. So his popular works, that means he was very excellent in Sanskrit. So all these dramas, or you say the poems, these were composed in Sanskrit. He was a Sanskrit poet. How Shakespeare, he was versatile in English literature. In the same way, Kalidasa was versatile in Sanskrit literature. But it is compared, that means he compared to Napoleon. We don't know how it will be. Okay. So his contribution, he wrote the 3 dramas. So what were those 3 dramas? Abhignana Shakuntalam, Vikramorvashiyam and Malavikagni Mitra. So this Abhignana Shakuntalam narrates the story of, a romantic story of King Dushyanta and Shakuntala, whose son Bharata later became the ruler. Sometimes we say that our land is named after this ruler also. Then the next is that another important, that means here the epic poems and also the lyrical poems. You could see that 2 epic poems, Kumara Sambhava and Raghuvamsha, and the 2 lyrical poems, Meghaduta and Ritu Samhara. Here Meghaduta is the cloud messenger, is equally an outstanding lyrical poetic work. The hero of Malavikagni Mitra is Chandragupta Vikramaditya. It was written to commemorate the marriage of his daughter, that means Chandragupta's daughter, Prabhavati with Rudrasena. Then Vikramorvashiyam, even that hero was same thing, Vikramaditya, or you say Chandragupta II. All the works of Kalidasa, especially dramatic works, have been translated into many major languages of the world. And moreover, although the subject matter of Kalidasa's works is love, nature and beauty, they nevertheless gives reliable information about the government, society, religion of the Gupta period. Besides, they also contain traces of political history. Means those days, you see that he was excellent in the field of Sanskrit literature. At the same time, he was close associate to Chandragupta Vikramaditya, and many a times he used to give him the advice. Not only a scholar in his court, but the best advisor for Chandragupta too, in some of the legends say that. So this is about the Gupta period. Next I am going to give you a set of questions. So go through these questions, learn the textbook, the entire textbook, and what is relevant for the examination. I have taught it. So next look at these questions and write the answers for these questions. Go through the textbook, learn and write the answers for these questions. The first question is here, why is the age of Guptas known as the classical age or the golden age of Indian history? The second question is here, who was Faiyan? What did he say about India? Next, the important epigraphic evidence of Imperial Guptas and who composed it. Then Samudragupta was compared to Napoleon and Alexander the Great. You have to explain the achievements of Samudragupta. Then why did Chandragupta II get the title Shakari? Then the famous university that existed during the Gupta period. You know that it is nothing but Nalanda University. Then where you have to mention to which state it is found even today, it remains. Then mention the architectural features of the Yoga temple. Then state the contribution of Aryabhatta in the field of science. Especially you have to mention about his two great work, Arabhatiyam and Surya Siddhanta. Then state the contribution of Kalidasa in the field of Sanskrit literature, means you have to mention all his literary works. Then with reference to Gupta's administration, you have to explain the position and powers of the monarchy and also the provincial administration. Okay, children, study the lesson, that means go through the lesson. I think by this time you have the textbook, and try to find the answers and write it in the classwork. This is what next we are going to give you one more the question bank. Then I am planning to give you some test also. Please you have to sit and do your work honestly, dedicatedly, and learn. Don't think that the school is not going to open, no school, no exam, no test, no teachers around you. See, it is for your benefit, it is for your better future. You have to sit and plan and study properly. Got it, children? Study well. Have a nice day.